My goals for what I wanted to accomplish in therapy are all based on areas that I want to grow. Old patterns I want to break, new things I want to gain the ability to do, etc. And none of my goals have ever been to blame anybody for anything in my life. And so I kind of hate that sometimes with trauma therapy, it does involve shifting blame or shifting responsibility, because there's a big part of in the back of my head that has always heard about how some people use therapy to just blame their parents for everything and to not take responsibility. And I don't really agree with people who think that's what therapy is. I think that's a really jaded way of looking at it, at least in the vast majority of cases. Maybe there really are some people who just use therapy to get validation and never to take responsibility, but I don't at all think that's mostly what it is by any stretch of the imagination. But at least in my case, I have childhood trauma that I blamed myself for, sometimes entirely, or at least just way too much for being a child. And so part of my healing does have to involve not shaming myself or feeling so guilty or blaming myself as much as I always have, because that is unhealthy and unproductive. And also because gaining empathy for myself, gaining self-compassion, is part of how I heal. It's part of how I empower myself and learn to trust myself and just am empowered to do the things that I want to do. And sometimes, at least the traumatized part of my brain goes, wait a minute, aren't we just shifting blame here? Isn't that what we don't want to do? Isn't what I want to do to take accountability? And it's a really tricky thing to kind of work my head around, because I think that is what I'm doing. I am truly taking accountability for my life, trying to become more empowered in my life, and really just take charge of my current day self. And it's also true that that does mean letting go of my perception of responsibility for things that happened in my childhood. And I don't know, that's a little bit tricky to wrap my head around sometimes. And so I kind of feel this back and forth debate going on between kind of my more logical, more adult version of my thoughts and that old trauma brain that wants to find a reason to continue to feel shame and guilt and blame over things that I didn't really have responsibility for to begin with.